What's the good word, everybody? It's your boy DKB here, chopping it up with y'all. Another lunch break special, if you will. We've had a lot going on this week. We have schedules that are released. Um, we have some interesting analyst predictions to get into. And then outside of that, we are right around the corner from officially diving into training camp, OTA things, and whatnot. So let's go ahead and let me pull it up. Let's dive into some of our scheduling that we have going on. So the Jets schedule for 2024. There we go. Okay, so official schedule is here. We have September 9th, us kicking things off. Monday Night Football special, San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to skip over this one because there's actually a full debate we can get into around what Mike Clay from ESPN put out, which I think is pretty, I don't know, it's a hot take, whatever you want to call it, right? But he put out basically highlighting the fact that this is going to be a matchup between two of the best teams in the NFL. And I'm not meaning two of, each one being ranked somewhere between 1 through 5, but literally that the 49ers and Jets are tied for first place in terms of roster construction. But then you take a look at these other ones, right? And I've seen the reports, I've seen, the press conference, whatever it was recently by the VP or the head of scheduling essentially for the NFL that was mentioning the New York Jets essentially owe the NFL one for Aaron Rodgers going down after 4 snaps, as if that was anything within our control. But it does lead me to think that a lot of the earlier conversations that have been had around the New York Jets, having some pretty tough schedules after having very poor seasons, right? And the whole objective or the whole principle of how the NFL draft is completed and how the NFL schedules are done and all that kind of stuff is that the worst team should have an easier time next year between them being higher in the draft pecking order, as well as, projected, win totals and all that other kind of scientific betting background stuff that I'm not necessarily too fond of or really care about a ton. But in something like our first 11 weeks, we have 6 late night primetime games, right? So we have the 49ers, we have the Patriots on Thursday night, the Bills, another Monday night football game, the Steelers, a Sunday night football game, and then you have the Texans on a Thursday again, and the Colts on Sunday night football. And then lumped into all of that, right? We're still just talking essentially first half of the season. We have a late bye, week 12. And then for the final 6 games, this same VP was also mentioning that you can expect, depending on where the New York Jets are at record-wise and if we're in heavy contention for the playoffs, that we could see a lot of late, I don't know if it was late night or just late game. I forgot how the it was spoken about, but basically we could be flexed into not as, essentially a primetime game or multiple primetime games in the latter part of our season, which is crazy right now. This is one of those make or break moments for the New York Jets where you're just hoping to make the most of Aaron Rodgers being here, right? There's not necessarily a smooth transition plan, I would say, from Aaron Rodgers to a guy like Jordan Travis right now. There's not necessarily a smooth transition for how the New York Jets plan to exit from this Nathaniel Hackett debacle. There's not really any expectation right now that Robert Saleh and his staff will find a way to stay beyond however long Aaron Rodgers is necessarily here, right? And I'm not saying that I expect Woody Johnson to fire these guys once Aaron Rodgers decides to hang up the cleats. But essentially, what is life after I'm going to look at, right? I've harped on that in pretty much any live stream that I've been on. People that invited me onto the shows when this conversation comes up. This is a conversation that needs to be had well in advance of whatever's currently happening now, because we know that this current regime, or maybe more so as Robert Saleh and them, right? You can give Joe Douglas a lot of credit for what he's been able to pull off, but they haven't been able to pivot and adjust well to circumstances when things don't play out in their ideal dream world, right? It drives me absolutely insane that once Plan A fails, the rest of the alphabet is gone, right? Everybody's sitting on the laurels. It's just, let's try to get through this, and we'll figure out when we actually have time. That's not going to fly. But looking at this schedule is interesting. I know I chatted with trying to remember his name. It was like loyal New York Jets fan or the angry Jets fan, something along those lines, right? What are some of the best storylines or the most unique storylines for the schedule this season, right? Now, the 49ers will be the first one, right? You're talking about just from a field perspective. Aaron Rodgers' first game back is going to be played on grass. So good news there. You have Mike Clay, who was projecting the Jets and the 49ers as the top tied teams in terms of having the best rosters. So you have that going for it. You have Aaron Rodgers' history with the 49ers, where I think he has a 6-3 regular season record, but then in the postseason, he's something like 3-4. And so, this could kick off a huge snowball effect for the New York Jets. If we can win this first game out of the gate, there's going to be a lot that's factored in on this. Then you have the Titans. I don't necessarily think there's anything major there. You have the Patriots, first game since Bill Belichick is no longer in the league. Gerard Mayo taking over as head coach. Will that rivalry still be the same? But I kind of see that dwindling and kind of fading into the sunset a bit. Then you have the Broncos once again. And I believe that's a home game for us. So we don't have to worry about AVT and potentially being injured, in the Mile High Stadium over there. But you do have that still Sean Payton, Nathaniel Hackett, bad blood. We were able to pull things out last year. Sean Payton has finally had an actual offseason to get into things, kind of start really getting this roster constructed in his vision and what he wants it to look like. And now he finally has his quarterback. Not only does he have his quarterback in Bo Nix, he has our former quarterback, Zach Wilson. There's a lot of things from a coaching perspective that we've seen coaches do, whether they hate the Jets or they just hate somebody we've had, like a Rex Ryan in place, right? So could you see, we're still talking essentially the first quarter of the season, Zach Wilson as their starting quarterback, and would there be some kind of crazy world where Zach Wilson comes in and pulls off Kansas City Chiefs like performance and ends up causing us a loss that realistically I think many of us expect to still be a win, especially at our home, right? And when you want to talk about all of the home games, you have to factor in Aaron Rodgers, the home field advantage he usually has, right? I don't know if that'll carry over to New York, but obviously that fan base, when you talk about that week one Bills game from last year, everybody's 100% behind him, right? And he's the star power that he's bringing. You're not going to have all of those situations we've seen before out of a Mark Sanchez, a Geno Smith, a Ryan Fitzpatrick, where the guy behind you, you're sweating bullets to hope you play well enough to keep the fans from chanting him, right? It's never going to happen this season unless, Aaron Rodgers turns into the 2022 version of, Russell Wilson. So no real concerns there. You get into the Vikings, that should be a high octane game. The Buffalo Bills, though, is definitely one I have circled on my calendar. Deion Dawkins is a guy that seems he seems hell-bent, right, on trying to rip the Jets absolutely every chance he gets. And it doesn't seem like it's anything new. right? I think the most recent comments I saw from him was just reiterating, in a less eloquent fashion that the Jets defense, are POSs. And that they don't appreciate the additional attention and love. It seems like we tend to show um, that we tend to show Josh Allen whenever we get a chance to play him, right? And so everybody's chirping, everybody's doing the back and forth. I don't know if Deion Dawkins is soft. I don't know if he's overly protective of his quarterback. But nonetheless, there's definitely a lot of bad blood there, between just purely Michael Clemens and Deion Dawkins himself. I think it was that same game last year where Michael Clemens was pointing pointing fans out in the crowd, right? And I don't know if it wasn't Jets fans, but it was from whoever the other team we were playing was, but specifically pointing him out to tell them F you and whatnot. Dano, I see you in here, my G. What's good? So did you? No. Actually, Gator McCluskey, I see him a lot on the Jake Asman show. He used to tap into a lot of the live streams I was doing earlier and stuff. He hooked me up with the intro to kind of spice things up for the channel. I'm a pretty bare bones guy, at least for now, with what I'm working with. So he hooked me up. With that said, though, I did mean to at some point drop the link in here for whoever ends up dropping by. If you guys want to pop on, you can. Give me one sec. Boom. So if y'all want to hop on, chat it up, feel free. With that said, though, yeah, man, the Bills matchups, they'll be good. And I love a good rivalry storyline. I love a good game where it's not lovey-dovey, right? On the field, let it be gruesome. When you get to the podium and the press conferences and stuff, pour your heart out. It is what it is. But there's no love lost here between me. I hope we go and bury Josh Allen. And we've had pretty good success. Keep in mind, a lot of people tend to underplay Josh Allen for some reason, just because he's a little bit more turnover prone. Him being an aggressive quarterback, him understanding what his arm is, the talents with, Stephon Diggs, he's been able to play with. He presses the issue, plays right into, I think, the strengths of this New York Jets defense team. But we've been able to kind of make his life hell, right? So I'm expecting a lot there, especially now that we have an adequate offense to help factor into keeping the defense healthy, keeping the defense fresh, right? I think that's the biggest hidden bonus that we get here with a guy like Aaron Rodgers. You're not going to be going, 3 and out on, damn near over 50% of your plays that you're out there running. We have the Steelers next. Nothing in particular that stands out other than, you're talking about back-to-back primetime games. So you're going from the Bills, still keeping it on the East Coast with the Steelers. Then we run it back with the Patriots. So we're knocking out half of our AFC East matchups before we even hit our bye week, right? After that, I've seen a few people comment on this, right? I don't know where everybody else tends to lie on this particular subject, but I do love the fact that we have a later bye week. I don't remember what the previous ones off the top of my head were, but it always feels like we have a bye week before like week 6 or before necessarily the trade deadline is kicked off. And then as we know, it just seems like the injuries tend to pile on. By week 12, when that bye week kicks off, I would say potentially, right? Let's say we take a loss to the 49ers just because they're more established, right? We are making a lot of assumptions about what this Aaron Rodgers-led team will be. I think it's definitely safe to say it's better than the 7-10 team, but let's just say it takes a while for everybody to click, everybody to gel. We go 0-1. We go and beat the Titans. We're 1-1. We beat the Patriots 2-1. I'll say we probably beat the Broncos at home 3-1. Vikings who did the Vikings have now, right? They have a combination of Sam Darnold, JJ McCarthy. That offense is still pretty lethal. The defense is coming along. Um, I don't know if let's just err on the side of caution, right? So where are we at? 0-1, 1-1, 2-1, 3-1. A Vikings L makes us 3-2. Let's say, and I don't remember what, I think this Bills first game is a home one. So let's say let's say that's a dub. Let's say we split, right? 3-1, 3-2. So we're 4-2 by the time we get to the Bills. 5-2 if we win against the Steelers. 6-2, sweep the Patriots. The Texans game is interesting to me because we've had a lot going on travel-wise up until this point. I know we demolished them last year and made CJ Stroud in that offense look really silly. But I don't think you can just write them off, right? Especially him having another year of development, the overhaul they made to that offense. Let's just say that's an L. 6-3. Cardinals, I love more so from a matchup perspective than anything storyline wise, what may happen there. But let's just say we get a dub there. 7-3, I believe we are at this point. And let's say we take a L. So going into the bye week, I think 7-4 is a pretty realistic record, right? With most of the top-notch teams being the ones we may take an L to. Colts, Texans, Vikings, 49ers. There's some trap games and different stuff you can talk about there. But generally, from all the other perspectives of where we are, have strengths and weaknesses, etc., we do extremely well with pretty much any other team in the NFL, especially from depending on how the game plan is set up. So 7-4 record heading into the bye week. You still have three divisional games to take care of. And you'll have 2 weeks worth of rest. And hopefully, if they don't play around with the late game flexing too much, you're talking about additional rest going into the home stretch. Aaron Rodgers trying to put his foot on necks, make sure he snuffs out the competition. And it's a Cinderella story walking into the playoffs, right? Ideally, at that point, what are we divisional record wise? We've swept the Patriots twice. We've taken at least the first game from the Bills. So you're talking about 3-0 record in the AFC East, 7-4 overall. And the later part of the schedule doesn't really look menacing, right? You have the Seahawks. What do we got? Seahawks, Dolphins twice, Jags, Rams, Bills. There's a lot more potential for L's here, right? The Bills, if we're talking about splitting, that's an L. The Rams, very, very feisty team. And then you have the Dolphins who mollywopped us last year, right? So maybe the bad blood will help out, and the the disrespect that we seem to have been shown. But overall, I think you can find a way to still collect 3 or so wins out of this, right? I think the entry mark is to get to 10 wins. 10 wins ideally get you into the playoffs. Depending on how, of course, the rest of the AFC is shaking out at that piece. But you're essentially, if you do go 3-0 before the bye week, you're at least controlling the AFC East at that point, right? So whether it's leading the division, whether it's just reaching 10 wins and getting into the playoffs as a wild card or something along those lines, I think both of those are very feasible, right? But there was another, I wanted to get into Mike Clay's ranking that he did. This one was pretty interesting to me and kind of opened some eyes when it comes to the whole conversation about where the New York Jets are expected to be at, right? From a competition standpoint. AFC East is very, very tough. Where'd it go? Let me find this in the background real quick. AFC East essentially, though, being extremely tough. We know our own division isn't necessarily going to do us any favors. Where did this go? I sat it aside and it rebooted on me. Give me 1 sec. I just want to find this. Here we go. Yeah, no. Getter said he was going to try to help make some things stand out. It was much appreciated. I know he hooked me up with a couple of things from an artistic perspective. Haven't necessarily used them all, but okay. So this is ESPN's analyst Mike Clay's positional rankings, right? If you want to take a look at the top of this list, we have the New York Jets leading the pack, and then we have the San Francisco 49ers. Now, taking a look at things, quarterback is where everything kicks off, right? This is a lot of the debate that I've seen around how far the New York Jets go, right? We'll go as far as Aaron Rodgers can push us, and that's true of pretty much any team in the NFL, but we are given a 3.5. And I don't know if this is the quarterback room as a whole or if he's just assuming what the starter level play is going to look like. But the only teams ahead of us are the Chiefs, right? Patrick Mahomes, he's obviously in a God tier by himself. Yeah, the Bengals with Joe Burrow. He has youth on his side. When he's been healthy, he's been in the Super Bowl. He's been in a championship game. So that makes a ton of sense. You have Lamar Jackson, 2 MVPs to his name. Obviously, he is that offense. Then we have the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. Don't really have any complaints there. And that's it. So Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Burrows all have youth on their side, all have an elite element to their game, and generally all have a highly functional offense, right? I'm not mad at that. 5th place in the quarterback room in the NFL, I think that's solid territory, especially considering we haven't seen Aaron Rodgers, right? It's been 2 years, and the last time we seen him was with the Packers, and he was dealing with essentially an entirely rookie-based offense. Right, I hear a lot of people praising Jordan Love for what he was able to do, finally given his shot. But then people don't want to give Aaron Rodgers his due credit in that he's developed Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs and who is one of the other guys? I want to say like Samari something, Robert Tunyon, making sure he has that offensive line, understanding what they need to do from a checks and patch protection perspective, all that other stuff. He pretty much handed Jordan Love a ready-made offense as much as he could provide, given the fact that he didn't really give them off seasons and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily like Jordan Love is, pulling this offense out of the mud so much as it is he's reaping the benefits and the reward of, Aaron Rodgers being plugged in for a year with them. It was unexpected. I thought we would probably be somewhere in the upper middle pack portion of the NFL in terms of the grading here. You take a look at our running backs, right? Again, not knowing if this is based on starters or the positional units as a whole, but Christian McCaffrey over Breece Hall, I don't know if he's 0.5, percentage points or whatever this is better than him. But obviously he has the more established career, all of the accolades and stuff in his name. I won't argue with the ranking there. We have Detroit, and who are they rocking with, right? It's Jahmyr Gibbs essentially leading the pack now. I don't know if I agree with that ranking, so maybe this is more so of an entire unit kind of grade. Who else is above us here? The Seattle Seahawks. And I don't even remember who they have. Maybe it's like Chris Carson. Um, I don't think they still have like a Rashad Penny. Let me see. Let me see what their depth chart is looking like. They have Kenneth Walker. Why am I forgetting him? So Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet. I Same thing. I don't know if I can say that Zach Charbonnet is a better back than Brees Hall from what we've seen. Um, Atlanta Falcons. Eh, Maybe he's factoring in health. I mean, Brees Hall is coming back. He had a very solid year. What was he, third or fourth in the NFL in scrimmage yards? Took him a while to get going. Took us a while to figure out how to use him. Took half a season for Hackett to figure out he can play in the receiving game. Running, so yeah, the running back rankings I'm not necessarily as in agreement with, right? But even then, still, two, three, four teams better than us. So at this point, we're ranking fifth. Let's just say he's grading the room as a whole. Fifth in the NFL in terms of QB room. Fifth in the NFL in terms of running back room. The wide receiver room, he does not seem to be as confident in, right? And this one intrigues me a bit. So you do have Mike Williams. You have the best quote that I've seen all offseason is that the New York Jets don't have a talent deficiency. We have a what if conundrum, right? It's what if the offensive line with Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses with his shoulder can stay healthy, and AVT with the leg upper body combination. What if Aaron Rodgers can last an entire season? What if Michael Williams can stay and maintain a positive impact in the wide receiver game, right? So a lot of question marks overall. What if the defense can remain as healthy as it's been the last 2 years, which is generally unheard of for us? What if CJ Mosley can continue his trend of, upper echelon play, considering his age and, wear and tear on his body? But I don't necessarily have a problem with this. There are a lot of question marks. Garrett Wilson's the only sure bet. Mike Williams is as good as you can get if he's on the field. But then you have rookies and undrafted free agents behind them. You would have loved another option, right? Who was the Bengals kid that we were waiting on for a while? And I think he went to the Titans. Why is the name escaping me? It was just there. Nonetheless, doesn't matter a ton, right? The issue is there's not enough established production on this roster. Even with Mike Williams in place, you're having to project that Malachi Corley can have a strong enough rookie season. And then you're having to hope for a boost of somebody stepping up out of Jason Brownlee, Irvin Charles, and Xavier Gibson. I think you should try to have the strongest players that you can at positions 1 through 4. People want Tyler Boyd. That's what I was thinking of. Appreciate you. Tyler Boyd, right? He could have came in. You can make an argument if somebody did improve. He's maybe your 4th or 5th best weapon. Like from a roster construction standpoint, you still have to keep in mind special teams. That's what the 5th and 6th position are generally for, and even the 4th guy you're expecting to play out there. So I'm a little curious how Alan Lazard will adjust to dropping in there in the special teams, right, and being able to go out there and not royally screw us with some more, some more penalties for plays that should go for touchdowns, and we're doing illegal blocks in the back and craziness. But my guy Dano, he's jumped on. He's in the background. He's going to come in and feed into this conversation real quick. Let me pull him in.
What's
Dano,
up, dude?
what's good, my guy?
Hey, not too much, man. Glad to officially meet you. I've seen you around, obviously. Yeah, dude, just this community is awesome. I went so many years in my teens just like assuming that, because I'm out of market, assuming that
Same.
I couldn't get along with other jet maniacs, but uh, for some reason, the last year or two, man, I've just met so many high quality people, man. It's awesome. It is.
Nah, I was in the same boat. It was dope. And normally, I'm surprised I even still do this because I'm very quiet in normal life. I don't generally go out and do public speaking or like any of that kind of stuff. So it was dope jumping in here. But then I got welcomed enough from people that seen it, Green Bean and, met with Gunny, met with Gino, seen Matt O'Leary and like chatted with different people from a distance. So it's been dope.
Yeah, dude, and Gunny's one of my favorites. Green Bean, like those are great people. Like I definitely like to have a beer with them guys, you know?
No doubt.
But
No doubt.
I don't want to do too much. I was just curious if you looked at any of the other teams in the division. I know a lot of their schedules are similar, but um, the one thing on that I wanted to touch on is I don't know if you noticed, but the Bills, they play the Patriots week 16 and 18. And that really, really annoys me because I have a feeling they'll be tanking by then, you know?
Yeah, I have seen. I mean, what can you do? They kind of just gifted them one, but in the same token, like the Bills' schedule overall is ridiculous for them leading in. So like they had to just law of numbers. They had to catch a break somewhere.
True.
Definitely wish it was us,
Dude,
but
because like I said, they might be tanking by then. And then that like if you play into that, it's like, is any lead over the Bills in the division safe? Because like they could easily win their last three games. Well, we play in between there, so
yeah.
that's good. That game at week 17, I think it is. That'll be huge. I don't know where it's at though.
Yeah, I was trying to look at it when I had the schedule thing up, but it was too much work. Let me just go to ESPN real
No,
quick.
you're good.
I think the
Use my
first
phone.
game is ours. I should have it in a second. Bear with me, chat. You guys know
No,
I'm
well, in StreamYard too, it doesn't like you doing too much. I know.
facts. Yeah, I gotta find another one. I've just been a little lazy. Yeah, so first game is ours, which means the later one in the season will be at the
There's,
Buffalo spot.
got you.
That might play into our
Um,
favor, though. Right? They're not generally the best run defense team. We should be run heavy in cold weather at that point. Like it's
so true. I do think, man, we can take that torch this year. I do. Uh,
I'm
but
fully in the same boat.
you brought up the Clay thing, man. Like I've been looking at this since before the schedule came out. It was a little harder then because, everything wasn't in order. But now that it is, I just feel like this PDF alone, like, because he has all the teams, there's just so much data. Like, I think
Yeah.
because I have Gunny on tonight, I think we're going to just be like, you can find so many stories and insights just with this one file. It's really cool.
It's insane. Like I was happy I found this condensed version of it, which is why like I don't know what all the inputs were and how he necessarily came to all these grades. So I didn't look at the larger one in detail yet. But like it's absolutely insane seeing how he came up with it. But I love these kind of charts because I especially at this point in the season, we've already done everything. Like, there's not going to be too many more crazy moves that come on. It'll just be some roster gymnastics, like some of the surprise players, like who's the next Tony Adams. They may come in right, essentially in like a starting or primary backup role, but this right here, I think, puts things in a macro level in a pretty good perspective for everybody. For a lot of those subjective ish arguments, which I know this still kind of falls into that bucket, but it's like I think this hits where most people would ideally, on paper, look at a roster and say, "Here's what the thought process is."
Okay. Let me ask you this. If, like, as far as our rankings go, and like you said, we haven't looked into how he came to them, but
Mhm.
as far as like where he put some, like, is there any position group that you feel that he's off the mark on?
Yeah, tight end is crazy to me.
I had I
I
had
don't.
two different spots, and that was one of them.
Yeah, tight end is absolutely insane to me because even from a production standpoint, like Tyler Conklin has been a top 10-ish guy, no matter what metric you really want to look at. Um, Obviously, we haven't done much behind that, but like Tyler Conklin in and of itself, like I have like a whole 30-minute discussion on like how many games did he not even get targeted until the fourth quarter?
Dude,
Even him, his own mistakes,
people well, people knock him for 0 touchdowns, and it's like, what, Garrett had 3?
yeah.
Like, come on, come on.
I,
Yeah,
I,
dude,
I give
like,
him the leniency. I know he had like the drop or two in the end zone and stuff like that, but it's like he didn't make all of the plays that were available to him. But I mean, that roster was the quarterback. I won't say the roster. The quarterback play was shit for so long. It's like how long are you going to be able to outlast a guy missing you? 19 out of 20 times.
100%. Yeah, Salah needs praise for it not becoming cancerous.
I say that so many times. Yeah, like it's tough with Salah. I want to love him a lot. Like I still do hold him in a lot of high regard, but obviously he's not quite the CEO kind of head coach guy that I thought we were getting. It sounded and looked that way after year one, but I think things just really, I think he was really looking at Greg Knapp as, hey, you are my assistant head coach. I will be in here to kind of, be a sounding, board for you and stuff. But legitimately, this is your offensive staff, your construction. I'm going to let you develop up Mike LaFleur and handle Zach Wilson and all this kind of stuff. And he never really found a true replacement for that Greg Knapp leadership he was looking for, and things just went and waterfalled on him.
Do you feel though, like, not to get on Salah too much, but do you feel like he would prevent us from winning a Super Bowl should we be in that mix? I'm not saying that
These
he
are
would
the
get us,
questions.
like,
Yeah.
maybe not, he wouldn't be like the guy to get it, but could he hold us back? And yeah, like anybody can in the moment, but like, because I don't feel like he's that big of a red flag. I just feel like there are a couple things he can button up.
Nah, yeah, I was a guy that really liked Todd Bowles, which is unfavorable opinion as well. But like I compare those two a lot, right? Todd Bowles was a guy that I think did have enough issues to where, yeah, he could probably get you to a Super Bowl or something if everything broke right, but he would be a hindrance. There's too many elements now he coaches and went about things where you could see the defense being the reason, and obviously that being his bread and butter, why we would fail. I don't think that same thing happens with Robert Saleh. Now, maybe there's a dumb play or two that keeps things more contested than you would like, or allow somebody to come back or something like that, like blowing, a ridiculous challenge, call in the first quarter for something that's not really impacting the game one way or another. It's like stuff like that irks me. But if we get there, I fully expect it's behind Robert Saleh and his defense, right? And then it's Aaron Rodgers doing what we expect him to do. So
100%. You did say tight ends. Did you have any other spots?
yeah, so looking at this, I do okay.
What do you
If the
feel?
assumption is that he's doing this by position and not just the starters at the top, right? The interior defense is crazy too. Like Quentin Williams is still a top three guy. Like
I I don't get that at all. I mean, you gotta assume that Quinnen is there. I don't know. Like that's got to be the 1.6 alone. At least, like I'd give him a 2
yeah, I was gonna
because you
say
could.
like 2.2 to 2 point like
Yeah,
5 would be the range just on the strength of Quentin. He's literally
yeah,
produced career years for everybody that sat next to him so far, let alone
100%.
change the complexity. How many teams switched up on us and started running as soon as Quentin Williams came out or had a minor, nick or bruise that took him out for a series or something?
100%. What do you
It's
feel about
crazy.
safeties?
Safety, I'm kind of okay with, right? So we have Tony Adams, who I'm really high on. I love a good
Same,
undrafted free agent story and stuff.
same, dude.
But he's still kind of coming into his own. Year three expectations, I think, should be fairly high. But has he done anything to necessarily put the league on notice? No. I think he's made the plays and in some cases forced the plays that we needed, like the Eagles game, for example, to close some things out. So I think he's kind of I put Tony Adams as like he has that borderline superstar potential. But then you do have question marks across from him. So knowing that Chuck Clark is kind of the Iron Man, but he's that consistent, quality veteran. You just don't know what it'll be. Not to put him in the same breath as like an Ed Reed, but it kind of reminds me of when we signed him when he was already on his downfall, and it was basically, can you play the mental game perfect enough to not be a hindrance with your body not being able to keep up with what your mind and your brain is seeing. Um,
Yeah, because I'm
but
curious, like, did Clay include Sherwood in that 0.6? I don't know either, but in my
mm,
opinion, Chuck Clark for me is going to be as good in the hybrid role. Like his run defense numbers are great. I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna be hugely valuable for us. But I don't know. I'd like to see like a 1.2 at that safety spot at least. I don't know.
so I would say, like, I won't knock it, right? I don't think we're one of the worst safety groups in the league, but I can see how people
Yeah,
outside of the Jets wouldn't necessarily know any of these guys. For one, right? Name value is always a big thing. The second piece is, even if you do know who our starters are, the people behind them still have question marks.
true.
Ashton Davis, I do like. I was a guy calling for him to be cut before we saw what he pulled out last year, but like a lot of people want to do this 180 script on Ashton Davis. I'm like, for what we knew up to that point, he was a bust. I know he was only a third round pick, but it's like he didn't live up to what we expected from him. So I love that he kind of had that season, right? He was talked about as one of the best, rotational safeties with like Geno Stone from the Ravens and stuff. But even then, it's not like he had that insane level production. And a lot of people still attribute him being on the roster to his special team success as well. So there's not necessarily a lot of strong depth, I would say, behind us either. Ashton Davis, then everybody behind him is a question mark, right? Jarek Bernard Converse, he was pretty much tore up all last year. We don't really know. Um, and then now we have another undrafted free agent in Jarius Monroe joining that group, but I don't recall us adding anybody else really significant there.
Not at safety. That's
How
why
do
a
you
lot of
think?
people. Go
My
ahead.
bad. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say a lot of people think we need Simmons. I don't. I want to save dollars until other like players on other teams start falling because I feel like you can only get one more guy that's what 5 to 10 million AAV. Like we can
Yeah.
only get one more, and I don't want it to be a player that we don't like. I want to. Ideally, we would play a month and look at the team. Okay, did we get anyone injured? Do we need something that we didn't know we needed? Rather than just jumping on Simmons and then possibly not even fully maximizing him.
Yeah, it feels almost like a waste, right? Because if we do sign a Simmons, that I would assume that means you're pushing Chuck Clark down, right?
Right,
That's
right.
obviously the upgrade, and it's not like that's necessarily a bad thing, but I just don't think it's the smartest roster construction move. Like, you know, if let's say John Simpson doesn't work out the way you wanted to, wouldn't you rather have $5 million you can plug in and try to find another solid guard option, or at least open yourself up to the trade deadline still being a possibility?
So true.
What were so one of the things that stuck out to me here about the inverse for it. I'm curious, do you think people are too high per se on our linebacker group, or does it seem to fit in the mold what you expect?
Three. See, I would love to know where Sherwood is because if you have like if you're looking straight at the roster, then Sherwood is a safety, and then linebacker we are desperately thin at. Um, so I don't know. I'm assuming that Sherwood's a linebacker. 3.6 is a little higher than I thought. Like I would put linebackers ahead of edge defenders, but I wouldn't do them that far ahead of them.
Right.
Um, and three, what is it out of a 4.0
So
scale?
yeah, looks like it goes about as high as four. So we are tied with what, one, two, three. So we're tied with three or four other teams that at least have a 3.6 or higher. Like,
I like I said, I do love them, but and they are Iron Men, knock on wood, but I don't know, like that's a high grade. It is.
Are so would you say potentially, right? Let's just say we're suggesting this is slightly overrated. Is that more from CJ Mosley's perspective of where his production could fall again, or do you think this is just an issue where there could be a better player than a Jamie Sherwood to short things up?
Yeah, and it's like I said, Sherwood, I do think, is the man for replacing Mosley. I guess, and Quincy has gotten way better at covering sideline to sideline. I'm just, I have a feeling that teams are going to try to stretch us east and west
Hmm.
more now, like knowing our defense even strong. I think you'd be stupid to run up the middle on us. Um, I'm a little hesitant to say I fully endorse Mosley being fast enough to still cover the outside, off tackle runs and
Hmm.
the jet sweeps and stuff. So it's the age, it's the fact that he looks like he's getting thinner every off season to combat the speed. Like, I don't know, there's going to be a time when we need sure. For instance, Mosley, for some reason, the season was lost last year, and Mosley still played 99% of the snaps. He played 100% of the snaps the last 3 weeks of last year.
Right.
Why aren't we getting like Sherwood snaps to like, I don't know. He's gonna fall off. So that's the only reason I would probably put linebackers at like 3.2, 3.3 maybe.
Fair play. Yeah, it was. I was impressed with them, to be honest. One of the things, and this is why I think even still that rating might be slightly, inflated. We still have not figured out a way to really solve guarding tight ends, right? And it doesn't even have to be
That's a
the
good
the
point.
top tier guys, right? Anybody coming in with a tight end that can reasonably catch causes me some concerns because even for as much as we've seen improvement out of Quincy, the nature of us being undersized, how we want to utilize playing sideline to sideline is too easy to open up options for a tight end. And you don't really have that eraser, right? That's why we usually roll a dime or nickel package when we try to bring in a DB. That's why we played around with Sauce Gardner, guarding guys like Kelsey last year, although that was a benefit because they didn't have anybody at wide receiver, right? Like I'm intrigued with the 49ers matchup for that reason. How do we want to try to play a team that has weapons everywhere?
And you know what? That's an excellent point about the coverage for tight ends. I mean, I think back to Njoku just obliterating us last year. I don't know per se who was covering him, but what I'm thinking is like Buffalo doubled down and they got Knox, they got Kincaid now in year two. If there's one way that Buffalo, like they obviously are drafting to beat us. So do you think that we're going to have trouble? You know, it's posing a problem, is all I'm saying. Like Mosley and Quincy against Kincaid and Knox another year
Yeah,
later, it's not trending the right way, is all.
I think the chess move will be whose offense can apply the most pressure because I think both of the defenses are set up to essentially operate the same way, right? Sean McDermott, Robert Sala, different schemage, but I think the intent's the same. Force the offense to press a little bit, then you can start to kind of come down on takeaways. You can keep everything in front of you, play downhill, let some of those guys. I'll be curious how they develop some of their new guys in their secondary because you don't have Poyer and those guys patrolling anymore. Um, but to be honest, in those games with the Bills, I think whoever can jump out to that first 6 point lead or so is the one that's generally going to come away with that victory. I think it's a very small margin there.
I agree. Ugh, man. Now I'm a little worried though, like, because like I was thinking, oh, the jet sweeps, man. Like, Mosley, I still don't understand why you have Mosley out there for every down those last few games, but like, cause Sherwood only had 200 snaps all last year, and they've been saying that he's the Mosley heir apparent for how many off seasons? Like, get the guy some snaps.
Yeah,
But I don't know. Like I said, the
was
jet
he at
sweeps
200?
were
I thought he was a
yeah.
little higher.
It was special teams gave him a lot more. Um, Let me see. I got it right here because
Yeah,
I was
no, he
looking.
was at 194. Yep.
Dude, isn't
Tough.
that alarming?
I thought he was because I think what damn, I just had his name. Our third guy 2 years ago was damn it, who was the dude that went to the Steelers? Oh, Quan. Right.
Oh
So
yeah,
Quan had like
Quan.
240-ish or something like that before. So I was like, okay, it's in the same range. He gave about the same production. There's certain areas he did better. So like I was just happy that he ended up being an adequate replacement there. But in the same token, there was at least 4 or 5 games where it's like, we're not coming back from this, right? In
It's
certain games, or we're up for once in a blue moon. Like, give Jamie and Sherwood some of these reps
yeah,
where he can
uh,
develop. Because I think from a communication standpoint, the staff, they were satisfied with him in year one. So everything else now is let's see if you can hold up with your body, right? You're still playing at a weight you don't generally play at. And can you continue to develop on those? And you're not getting a ton of that in flight school. I would imagine, because like I love the story last year about Aaron Rodgers picking people off on defense, but I was like, how what games are we playing where we could sacrifice Aaron Rodgers playing linebacker instead of getting some reps out of some of these young guys?
good point. Very good point. Then I give them credit. They got him on the field for 400 and some special team
Yeah,
snaps. But you're right. It's repetition. Like, just I mean, 190 snaps. That's 10 snaps a game. Like, what, a snap a quarter? Like,
right. Yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
it's it's weird. These are some of the things where like I hate to question the staff because obviously they've done a tremendous job of finding defensive guys, and no matter what they're playing from a snap count, it seems like these guys are developing when we do see them in preseason when they do get these quarter snaps in the regular season. But it's like I look at a guy like Chad Surratt, right? And I was chatting with somebody in the comments. He reminds me of like a Blake Cashman type guy. If he stays
Hmm.
healthy and can actually get out there, he's going to ball out. But it's like Robert Sala was talking about this is he seemed like the guy. I thought he was going to jump over Jamie and Sherwood in like the depth chart, right? He's like, this could be an all pro type guy, yada yada. And I'm like, what are you seeing in flight school, or what are you seeing in the what did he play 9 snaps last year that
Yeah,
makes you that high on him?
there. I don't know if it's just the practice, like if they're able to really simulate the game atmosphere, but I feel like you got to have the pressure of in-game reps to really mentally develop. But maybe I'm wrong. Because, like you said, clearly what they've been doing has been working. But if there's a few things that I would question the staff on, it usually is in that realm, snap count distribution and whatnot.
Yeah, it's tough at this point. I have my questions for the defense. I'm confident that we'll get those ironed out, or as usual, the staff will find a way to really kind of minimize and mitigate a lot of those issues. Everything to me is offensively, right? Purely 100%. Um, Jordan, where do you fall on this conversation, right? Jordan Travis kind of being the heir apparent. I've seen Rich Samini tweeting some stuff. That opposes that point of view necessarily. They're just hoping to kind of give him the treatment they couldn't give to Zach Wilson. But where do you fall on kind of this roster transitioning? Let's just say Aaron Rodgers gives us this year, right? And then he decides he wants to go and do the VP stuff or whatever nonsense he has going on. But where do you fall in terms of being confident this roster might transition?
Sorry, I missed the beginning of that, but were you talking in regards to the transition to Aaron retiring?
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
pretty much life after AR. Are you fully invested into like Jordan Travis being looked at as that next guy, and then you just weigh what your options are when it comes to like draft, free agency?
So my stance on it is that I'm hopeful that Jordan Travis cannot replace Aaron, but can replace Tyrod Taylor.
Facts.
Um, because if he does that, then that frees up what, 10 mil or whatever. Um, and then B, he can continue grow. Like I'm hoping he's with Aaron for 2 years because then next off season I can reevaluate that. But for now, just get to a point where you can be a top 16 QB2 in the league. And I'll be happy because I think that should Aaron leave sooner than like 3 years from now,
Mhm.
this team is going to be win now, ready to go. And our play would probably be to overpay a veteran quarterback in their 30s to come and do a win now ring chase. I don't think it would be the time to put like a Travis in and hope that they blossom with this supporting cast. Like, I don't want to redo the Sanchez experiment where we had an excellent team and then we're just hoping the quarterback like that. I'm over that, man.
Yeah, I haven't seen that model really work for anybody, right? Like the last person to maybe pull something like that off, which is not even necessarily in the same, apples to apples conversation, was probably Peyton Manning, right? Where he just didn't really have the arm strength anymore, or like the endurance, but the defense was elite. He had enough weapons around him. The run game was strong enough. Like he literally just had to play game manager. Just don't be Peyton
And at
Manning
least
and don't screw it up.
see, at least he's done it too. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that, but like the hoping he pulls it out of his hat in the New York market, I think we ought to just stick a fork in. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it,
It's
it concerns
it,
me quite a bit.
it's I'm starting to wonder if it's possible for a franchise quarterback to blossom in this market. I almost feel like we would be better served going with the 30-year-old guy that's already been somewhere for the force. And then if we do develop one, just do it from the bench, because it's hard for anyone to be mentally prepared to handle criticism. And should they not start out the gate hot, I don't think that they would be able to handle the adversity.
Yeah, it's one of the things that really stresses me out when it comes to any time we talk about taking a quarterback. It doesn't matter if they're supposed to be the one or like even if we're just expecting them to be a backup, right? Because that's playing it safe. That's kind of my projection for Jordan Travis. If he develops, let him be the high quality, let him be the Tyrod Taylor. He can come in, he'll give you a full season if you need to, if something tragic happens. But he's not the guy you expect to build around for 2, 3 years going on. But when I look at things this year, kind of getting into final thoughts, I suppose. The offensive coaching staff specifically is an Achilles heel, right? As of right now, I think Tony Dews was like a good addition. I do like Sean Jefferson and stuff. Ron Middleton still seems to be, good at his job with the tight ends, but it's an Achilles heel. We have no idea what the hell Nathaniel Hackett's being paid to do, right? Based on everything that's come out and what we've seen. Um,
Facts.
Aaron Rodgers is essentially the de facto, offensive coordinator over there, as far as we're aware. Where in some of these games where you might consider it like a toss up, right? A pick me, if you will, where do you lean on when it comes to kind of giving the nod from like a coaching staff perspective?
Like, what do you mean per
So
se?
like normally, right, you would do apples to apples. All right, it's Kyle Shanahan versus Robert Saleh, or Joe Brady versus Nathaniel Hackett. We don't really
Yes.
have that situation with how we set ourselves up. So it's kind of like it's player versus
Yeah.
coach at this point, realistically.
Honestly, it's like when you do start that argument, I think the only way that we can feel good about the comparison of our grouping versus anyone else's is if you expand the bubble to include under center, you know. If you include the quarterback and the quarterback's mind along with the play caller and the play caller's mind and what they're able to do in tandem, yeah, we're taking a hit with OC, I feel. And but the thing is, it's the other way under center. I think that we have oodles and oodles of things going for us with the quarterback's mind. And I don't know. There's only like a few in the league that would even be in the conversation to be like as educated with with reading defenses and the knowledge of the game. So if you're gonna do just play calling, offensive staff versus others, I think you'd be doing it a disservice without including who has to actually uh, take those thoughts and like manifest them, and that's Aaron. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's been nuts to try to wrap my brain around that. Like, he literally has to do coach and player all at the same time while trying to.
Thankfully, dude, his processing speed. Hopefully, he's got so much of it already learned that hopefully a lot of it's just second nature now. But um, like you said, the Peyton role, I think that he can be that, but still have in him to have the strong arm we need to thread a needle in the fourth. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't think we're going to need him to go out there and create very much. I really don't. If we're assuming that we establish the running game, and this offensive line we've put together this offseason is so good in run blocking, especially on the right side, that we should run first, not too heavily, but run first. And I would only really do dicey throws and small window passing late in the first half and maybe the entire fourth quarter as needed, because this defense is not going to give up 25 points a game. So why be throwing in small windows early on if you don't need to? You know what I mean? You're just giving the other team an opportunity to swing the game. But if we establish the run and we take what's there, because, I mean, let's face it, with Conklin being our like fifth option in the passing game, there's going to be matchup nightmares all over. You don't have to get too creative to be able to put up 25 a game with this roster. So establish the run. Don't get crazy. I think that you can preserve Aaron's arm strength for January football and for, like I said, fourth quarter comebacks as needed. And it's the recipe for success. But if you have him dropping back, what was it, like 525 times most
Oh
years? That's
man,
that's far too many, man. We ran the ball 400 times last, 388 or something. I want to get that up to like 460, you know?
facts.
And I think we have the horses in the stable, and we have the guys up front, man. Like, I don't know if you're on PFF, but just look at their run blocking numbers. They're all excellent. We got Fashanu on the bench. The only thing I scare is like, oh, 3 games in 10 days. We can do it, but like that's prime for like an O lineman to go down because they're
Facts.
overworking themselves. So like, don't be giving guys 100% of snaps those weeks. Like, don't. But like I said, the recipe's there. Assuming that they are with me and you on the mindset for making it play out, I think that we can run an efficient offense, not one that you can count on to, they're going to get 4 field goals a game and 2 touchdowns, and they're maybe more depending on where they want to shade their coverage. And
Yeah, no
then
more race
Brees.
to 10-point conversations.
Right, dude? That's what I'm saying. And that's what, like, people knock the defense, defensive line, I should say. They think that they should be even better. It's like, how many games were these guys thinking in their heads, if I blow one assignment, we lose?
Exactly.
Like, the whole mindset will change, and the pin in the ears back, we say it all the time, but I don't think we really realize what that the ability to do that, what that means to an athlete. Like, these guys will really be able to bring the thunder when they realize that they blow an assignment. They might be out of it for a quarter, but you don't got to give this guy very long to catch us back up.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that goes extremely underrated. Like, we've seen that maybe one or two games last year, and it always had to wait until like the third or fourth quarter. Like, when I looked at it, I can't remember quite what the numbers were, but I think we were outscored by almost like 200 points in just the first half of games. Like, it's it's absolutely insane how bad things were. And I know we might not have had historic numbers, but generally speaking, that's a historic level like efficiency from the defense, knowing that you're going to be in a hole pretty much right out of the gate, right?
And
And
we were still in how many fourth quarters? You know,
facts.
that's insane. It is.
17-point
So
first quarters to the goat with Mahomes, and we still come back
yes,
and Eagles. Like,
we
yeah, there's a lot to appreciate there. Um, I'll wrap this up with this because I'm curious kind of where you lie in the conversation of preserving Aaron Rodgers, right?
mhm.
Assuming where things go according to plan and we're actually up in these fourth quarters, are you sitting Aaron on the bench, or are you trying to, I don't assume we'll be really throwing, but are you trying to still keep him in and give him as much reps with the offense as possible?
Like you mean when we're up ahead
Yeah,
in
we're
games?
clearly up. Team's not coming back. 6 minutes to go. We're up, 17 points or something. You sitting
I
Rogers, or are you letting him play it out?
a delicate conversation because I feel like we might be better served to keep him in and then actually pull Tyron Smith and put Fashanu at left tackle and get him
Mm,
development with Aaron. Um, but it's also like we saw it last year. 4 snaps is all it takes. But I mean, that's stupid to say because flukes happen. It could be 1 snap for anybody. But
thanks.
I do want to find a way. Like I feel like we are best served if we can find a way to get Tyron Smith healthy for December and on. And also the like Fashanu has to be too. So I it's unpopular and nobody says it's doable, but I kind of wish there was a way to slow Tyron Smith down and bring him in closer to the bye week. And that would give the rookie developmental time to where by the bye week we have two premier left tackles and everybody's saying, this guy's paid per game. You're not you can't just have a guy like that on your bench, but I do hope that there is a way to get Fashanu developed throughout the season so that should someone go down, he's not playing his first meaningful reps in the wild card or should I say the divisional round of the playoffs.
Facts.
Um, what do you think about that though? Would you prioritize securing Aaron Rodgers' health over left tackle's health, knowing how little Tyron Smith plays 20 games, you know?
Yeah. So if it comes down to it, I guess the way I look at it is that having to rely on Olu that maybe has minimal game time experience step into the league year one, day one, I think you're still looking at a guy that reasonably fits in as like a top 20 left tackle. I would be fine with that as opposed to seeing Aaron Rodgers maybe look worn and torn going into like that final quarter of games before we get into the playoffs.
True.
Again, kind of going back to the earlier conversation, there's a lot of tinkering they've been doing with our roster, tons of late night games. All of our stuff, prime time wise, luckily is in like the first half before the bye week. But it's like we still heard him saying, we might flex a lot of your later games if you're, still in playoff contention and stuff. So I would be more comfortable kind of seeing Aaron Rodgers be a little bit more relaxed and refreshed as possible going into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Because I also assume, right, part of part of Tyron's rehab plan, or kind of how they kept him healthy last year, was that he didn't really do any practices, um,
Good
and
point. Very
they
good
didn't
point.
really rush him back. So like Olu's going to be eating up a ton of real time practice reps. He's going to be playing essentially as left tackle one all of year one without necessarily having to do it in the games. And assuming whenever Tyron goes down, like I forget who put it out there, but some people are saying once Olu hits the field, we might decide Tyron is our main backup instead, right? So
I think we're a better team if we find a way to make that work. I hate to say, well, all I'm trying to do though is look at it right there on the screen. If you take those quarterback numbers, running back numbers, and O line numbers into the playoffs, I don't know who's stopping us because that wide receiver number has a chance of coming way up too. So does tight end.
100%.
Dude, like, I don't, what is that? That's the 49ers beneath us, and we are
Yeah.
right there with them. And I would take our O line, like, I would take our whole row of, like, I don't know, man. I do. If you can find a way to take that into January football, then we got this. But uh, we got to find a way to do that. And three
Yeah.
games in 10 days right off the bat is scaring the hell out of me more than I let on.
No, I think that does need to be a concern. I At this point, I'm just putting it in the hope for the best category, right? Because if
Yeah.
the way I look at it is if we come out full steam ahead, offense doesn't necessarily look off. Like I'm okay with some adjustments and stuff that's normal for any team. If we look like an effective offense coming out of the gate, sky's the limit for me. The only real concern I have is if we look like a shit show, and then how are we going to be able to actually come out of that? Because a lot of it's going to fall to Aaron. He obviously still needs to play himself, so how much time is he investing in these meetings where he actually has to be the main one, coming up with the game plan and doing all of this extra nonsense that he shouldn't really have to rely on? Like, it's going to be a lot. So
It if yeah, I don't know. Assuming that I mean, because honestly now, unlike last year, we can knock on wood, but we can afford an injury or two and still be all
mhm.
right. Um, and I think looking at the schedule, we only had like 2 games in November because we close out of October with a Thursday night on Halloween, and then like we get our bye in November. Like there's literally 2 games in November, and that's it. If we can use that little cushion mid-season to lick our wounds and ramp back up going into December, I just love that part of the schedule. And it might really lend itself to getting guys back from IR. Um, the 3 and 10 sucks because, like anymore, if you have a concussion, how many times are you out 2 games now?
Yeah.
Uh, I think DJ Reed missed like almost 3 games with his. So, like, yeah, just get through week one. If we come out of week one, it's not even like the effective offense, but if we come out unscathed, my confidence is really high.
Yeah, I hope that, maybe I'm a little bit higher on moral victories than anything else as long as there's carryover. But like, honestly, the 49ers are more established. They've done it better. They have an elite coaching staff. Like, if we're even hanging with them, I'm good after week one. Like,
Great point. Yeah, because and that's what I said when it first dropped that news. I'm like, it's almost like a game that we can't lose. Like we can lose nothing by playing them first. They can lose a lot, but because we're not supposed to beat them, not at this
this would be
level in their
like,
development.
yeah, like it's funny when I've been trying to like put this into a visual in my head, but like imagine this is I don't know where you are on like the anime spectrum of stuff, right? But like imagine this is like Baki Hanma or something, right? You This is Baki versus his father, right?
Ah,
And then
yes,
anybody that's coming after them are obviously much worse. Like imagine being able to knock off the 49ers right out the gate, and then you're the Bills
dude,
or whoever we have next looking at us, and you're like, oh crap, it's for real.
100%. If we beat them, like the under the radar is gonna be not just no, not possible, but we are gonna be like the talk of the whole year. So just don't want to see any like I just like you said, I want to compete with them, hang with them. We don't have to have like no fourth quarter comeback and win it all dramatically like last year or nothing like that. Like let's just look like a professional team again. Let's put everything together and show the world, hey, we're not same old Jets. We're in the mix, and we will be in January too.
Yeah, it'll be nice. I'm tired of all this chatter about us being bested by high school and subpar college teams.
Facts. Dude, I'm gonna let you do your conclusion, but I appreciate you letting me on, man. Like I said, I haven't met you officially, so it was cool to hang out. Maybe
Yeah,
get you
man.
on my show at some point. All right.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward. I, appreciate being able to put a face to the name for sure. I've seen you around for a minute. So yeah, we'll chop it up again. I'll probably be. You said Gunny's on yours tonight, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
A
yeah,
lot
yeah.
of scheduled talk, but I told him that we should both be ready for like any convo because everybody's like drilled the schedule by now. But that 2 game thing in November is kind of wild to think about. I don't think that's ever happened. But
Yeah, there's a
yeah,
lot of weird kinks.
9 o'clock, man. Catch ya
Yeah, yeah, man. I'll be linking around in the background somewhere. I appreciate it.
later.
Be easy. Well, friends and family, etc., etc. Appreciate you guys hanging around, kicking it with me. I'm over my lunch break, but technically I've been working in the background, so it is what it is. Not sure when we'll necessarily go live again. I know me, Gunny, and my boy Gino will be back, I believe, around the 31st with our Jets Flight Squad podcast. But until then, I'm still cranking away at undrafted free agents for us. So stay tuned with that. I think I just barely got to like a third of our 17 guys or so we signed, which I think is closer to like 21 or so now. But still diving into them, and then we'll see what other breaking news and craziness comes out as training camp and stuff ends up coming. But appreciate y'all hanging. I will catch up with everybody again, and be easy. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your weekends. Peace.